22. Long rifle. The .22 long rifle is the only caliber in 2026 that isn't giving American shooters a massive headache. While other bullets are getting hit with huge import taxes of 25%, the .22 stays cheap because we make almost all of it right here at home. Companies like CCI, Federal, and Winchester have big factories in Idaho and Mississippi, so they don't have to worry about ships getting stuck or paying extra taxes at the border. Since the ammo doesn't cross an ocean to get to your local shop, the supply stays steady and the price stays low. The best part about the .22 LR right now is that its price only went up by a tiny 3 to 5%, making it the smartest way to keep practicing without breaking the bank. You can still find these rounds for about 8 to 12 cents each, which is a bargain compared to anything else on the shelf, while lead and copper costs are rising for everyone. The Made in the USA label protects them from the price chaos affecting imported brands. If you want to spend a full day at the range in 2026 without spending a fortune, this little rimfire round is still your best friend. 45 ACP. The .45 ACP is a legendary caliber that American shooters still trust for its massive stopping power. But in 2026, it is becoming much more expensive to feed. Major manufacturers like Federal and Winchester have officially raised their prices by 3 to 8% starting this January. This hike isn't caused by import taxes, since most 45% of ACP is made domestically, but rather by the soaring cost of raw materials. Copper prices have climbed steadily due to global demand for electrical projects, and lead processing has become more expensive because of new environmental rules, pushing the floor price of this heavy metal to new highs. The real financial hit for .45 ACP owners shows up at the range, where standard practice rounds now cost 40 to 60 cents each, making every training session a serious investment. If you prefer high-end defensive loads like Federal HST or Spear Gold Dot, you're looking at 80 cents to over $1 for a single shot. For a shooter burning through 200 rounds in a weekend, the bill now hits $80 to $120 just for ammunition, while the .45 remains a top choice for self-defense. These rising costs are forcing many enthusiasts to rethink how often they pull the trigger on their favorite 1911. 40 Smith & Wesson. The 40 Smith & Wesson is currently caught in a difficult cycle of rising prices and shrinking supply. Once the gold standard for American law enforcement, this caliber has seen a decline in popularity since the FBI switched back to 9mm. In 2026, this drop in demand has actually made the ammunition more expensive because major manufacturers have shifted production lines to focus on more popular rounds. The .40 caliber now suffers from regional shortages, allowing retailers to drive prices higher due to limited inventory. The real issue for .40 caliber shooters in 2026 isn't just the 5 to 10% price hike, but the fact that finding any stock at all has become a game of luck. Current prices fluctuate between 45 and 70 cents per round, depending on which seller actually has boxes on the shelf. While it offers more energy than a 9mm, the unpredictable availability is pushing many to retire their .40 caliber pistols. Gun stores report empty shelves as manufacturers prioritize high-volume cartridges, leaving this once dominant round struggling to stay relevant. 380 Auto. The 380 Auto is the top choice for concealed carry. But in 2026, pocket pistol owners are facing a sharp rise in costs. Major leaders like Winchester and the Kinetic Group have pushed prices up by 3 to 12%. This hits the 380 harder because it is a secondary priority in American factories. Most lines are dedicated to high-volume 9mm, so when raw material costs for copper and lead rise, the 380 absorbs those expenses disproportionately due to its smaller production scale. The financial reality is that standard practice rounds now cost 35 to 55 cents, while defensive hollow points can reach $1.50 per shot. For many shooters who prefer the lighter recoil of .380 pistols, these rising prices make regular training much more expensive. While demand for deep concealment weapons stays high, the cost of feeding them is a major burden. As manufacturers prioritize their biggest sellers, the gentleman's caliber is becoming as expensive to shoot as much larger, more powerful rifle rounds. 38 Special. The 38 Special, a law enforcement icon for over 70 years, is facing its toughest economic challenge in 2026. While it served faithfully from World War II to modern home defense, this classic revolver cartridge is now being crushed by rising raw material costs. Copper and lead prices have climbed steadily, driven by global industrial demand. Because of this, standard practice loads have jumped 8 to 12%, now costing 50 to 80 cents per round. For many enthusiasts, the old reliable is becoming a luxury they can no longer afford to shoot weekly. The real financial burden lies in defensive loads like Federal HST, which now run between $1.20 and $2 per single cartridge. This means a box of 50 rounds can cost a staggering $60 to $100. Consequently, many shooters are making the painful choice to switch to 9mm semi-automatics for better capacity and cheaper ammunition. As demand drops, manufacturers scale back production, creating a spiral where lower volume leads to even higher prices. For a caliber that once protected 3 generations, the high cost of metal is slowly pushing it out of the holster. 12-gauge buckshot and slug. The 12-gauge shotgun has been America's home defense standard since it cleared trenches in World War I. But 2026 is bringing heavy price pressure to specialized loads. While basic target shells for clay shooting remain stable, defensive rounds like buckshot and slugs have jumped 10 to 15%. Federal's Flight Control and Hornady Critical Defense now cost between $1.50 and $3 per shell. This increase is driven by the rising cost of heavy lead and specialized wad technology, making the ultimate stopper significantly more expensive to keep loaded in your tactical shotgun. The most painful price hikes are found in non-toxic hunting loads, where exotic materials like bismuth and tungsten have seen a 42% jump over the last 5 years. Duck hunters using copper-plated bismuth from brands like Boss now pay $2.13 per shell, up from $1.50, while steel remains a cheaper alternative. Its poor terminal performance pushes serious hunters toward these expensive metals. Between the high cost of defensive buckshot and the soaring prices of non-toxic waterfowl loads, the ammunition that once cleared bunkers is now emptying wallets at an alarming rate across the United States. 308 Winchester 7.62 NATO. The 308 Winchester, a staple for American hunters and snipers, is entering a danger zone in 2026, while it remains a top choice for precision shooting. The supply chain is buckling under massive military demand. The war in Ukraine and resupply contracts for NATO have drained domestic capacity, as government orders take priority over civilian sales. Major plants like Lake City are running at maximum output, yet distributors warn of severe shortages by mid-year. Consequently, prices for standard rounds have climbed 5 to 10%, now sitting between 80 cents and $1.20 per shot. The most significant impact is felt by precision shooters, as match-grade loads now reach $2 to $3 per single cartridge. This is a genuine availability crisis, where ammunition often sells out within hours of restocking. Even those who reload their own brass are struggling with a scarcity of powder and expensive primers. As online retailers constantly show out-of-stock notices, many shooters are forced to limit their range time. The caliber that once replaced the 30-06 is now facing its own reckoning in a world where military needs come first. 9mm Luger. The 9mm Luger is the most popular caliber in the world. But in 2026, its affordability has been shattered. The primary culprit is a 25% import tariff hitting major suppliers like PMC from South Korea. This tax adds $50 to every 1,000-round case, a cost passed directly to shooters because imported brass no longer provides cheap competition. Domestic brands like Winchester and Federal have also raised prices. This perfect storm of taxes and rising demand has pushed the floor price of the world's favorite round to painful new highs. The financial impact is massive. Practice rounds have jumped from 22 cents in 2025 to nearly 40 cents today. For millions of Americans, a simple range trip is now 20% more expensive than last year. High-end defensive loads like Federal HST now cost between 70 cents and a full dollar per cartridge. With demand surging due to election anxiety and tariff panic, the days of dirt-cheap 9mm are officially over, forcing handgun owners to tighten their belts and ration their ammunition at the range. 8mm Mauser. The 8mm Mauser, the legendary round of the German Kar 98K, is facing a total supply collapse in 2026. Since no American companies mass-produce this caliber, shooters depend entirely on imports from Prvi Partizan in Serbia. However, a catastrophic 37% tariff on Serbian goods has made importing this round economically impossible. With taxes soaring, experts believe PPU will stop exporting to the United States within months. This has triggered massive panic buying among collectors who want to keep their historical rifles functional before the supply vanishes completely. The financial reality is grim. Prices have jumped 40% in 90 days, with rounds costing between $150 and $250 each, if you can find them. Most major retailers are already sold out, and those with stock are charging premium prices for standard loads. For decades, cheap surplus made these rifles affordable, but those days are gone. Owners of vintage Mausers are watching their firearms become safe queens because range trips have become too expensive. The caliber that echoed across World War II battlefields is now facing its final days on the American market. 7.62 by 54 rimmed Russian. The 7.62 by 54 rimmed, the longest-serving military round in history, is being defeated by economics in 2026. While it famously armed Red Army snipers at Stalingrad, American shooters now find it nearly impossible to feed their Mosin Nagant rifles. The 2022 Russian ammo ban eliminated the primary source of cheap surplus, and the new 37% tariff on Serbian imports has killed the last remaining lifeline from Prvi Partizan. PPU can no longer export profitably, and many expect supply to vanish within months. The financial shock is staggering. Those $30 Spam cans from a few years ago now cost $300. If they even exist, standard rounds have hit a 10 times price increase, now ranging from $150 to $3 per shot. Millions of historical rifles like the Mosin and Dragunov are becoming unusable relics in American safes for a caliber that survived over a century of global warfare. The combination of trade bans and soaring tariffs is proving to be a challenge that even its legendary reliability cannot overcome. 9x18 Makarov. The 9x18 Makarov, the iconic sound of Cold War authority, is facing extinction on the American market in 2026. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, surplus pistols like the CZ-82 flooded into the U.S., supported by cheap Russian ammunition. However, the ban on Russian imports overnight eliminated brands like Wolf and Tula, leaving Serbia's Prvi Partizan as the sole supplier. Now, the 37% tariff has made PPU's exports unsustainable. Since no American companies produce this caliber commercially, owners of Makarov pistols are watching their ammunition supply dry up with no replacement in sight. The price of Makarov ammunition has suffered a 400% increase in under a year, jumping from 40 cents to nearly $2 per round. Owners are frantically searching forums and local shops for any remaining stock, but most shelves are empty. Some defensive loads are even pushing past $250 per shot, making this compact surplus pistol more expensive to fire than a modern Magnum. As the last imports vanish, the caliber that once armed the KGB is being forced into early retirement, leaving collectors with functional but silent pieces of history. 7.62 by 39. The Apocalypse. The 7.62 by 39, developed for the AK-47, is experiencing a pricing apocalypse in 2026. Historically, the cheapest centerfire rifle round in America, it has been hit by a perfect storm of tariffs, war demand, and limited domestic production, with Russian imports banned and Serbian supplies crippled by a 37% tariff. The primary sources of affordable steel-cased ammo have vanished. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine consumes millions of rounds, forcing major plants like Lake City to prioritize military contracts over civilian sales. American manufacturers simply cannot scale up fast enough to fill the massive void. Prices have exploded from 20 cents in 2024 to over $1 per round for steel-cased ammo in early 2026. Domestic brass-cased loads are even more expensive, often reaching $150 per shot. This 300% increase has transformed the AK from a budget-friendly range toy into a high-cost precision tool. Retailers like Lucky Gunner and SG Ammo show out of stock constantly, and purchase limits are now standard. The most produced military caliber in history is being priced out of reach for the average American shooter, marking the end of an era for affordable semi-automatic rifle training.